I want to move over to CJ Carr next, Trev, and talk about, why is CJ Carr still in the race? And ultimately, at the end of the day, with CJ, it comes down to, without a doubt, this is your best passer in the battle. This is the guy that gives you the best chance to have the most efficient, explosive, and productive pass game. We'll talk about some of the specifics as to why, but ultimately, big picture, if your desire is to be a team that can really throw the ball at a high level, there's no question that this is the quarterback to get you. I even think people that want Kenny to start would be willing to admit this. Most of them, like reasonable people, say, yeah, if it's just about throwing the football, like if we're talking about, like, Notre Dame's going to enter a 7-on-7 tournament, who's the quarterback on the roster you want? If there's not I think, I'm being hyperbolic, I think Kenny might be like CJ. You know what I mean? It's like, I've always said this, like, who would you rather have as your quarterback in a 7-on-7 tournament, Tim Tebow or Tommy Rees? I'd rather have Tommy Rees. But once you put 11-on-11 and you put them pads on and it becomes big boy football, there's nobody else I'd rather have than Tim Tebow in that kind of conversation. And so that's the biggest reason I think that CJ was in this conversation, is this is that guy that raises that level of play in the passing game. And what does that look like? I think the first trait, when you talk about what CJ adds to the offense, Trev, you mentioned it earlier, it's consistency. And that's what we hear from all of our sources. Like, he just kind of is what he is every day. And every quarterback has a little bit of this, but what you want to avoid is like this type of high-low. You want to kind of stay up here. You know what I mean? And I think that's the biggest thing that CJ brings to the table, is just, you kind of know what you're going to get from him. And that's coordinators love that. I want to know what I'm going to get from week to week. I don't want to game plan something in the middle of the first quarter. And I think that was some of the frustration that Mike Denbrock seemed to have last year on offense. And you could tell. Now, how do I know that? It's not by his body language. It's not by, hey, Coach Denbrock, none of that. It's just, you could see the play calling evolve after about a quarter, where he just like, look, Riley's not going to make that pass today. He's just, we work on this thing all week. And now the quarterback can't read it. And so now I got to change the offensive. You want to kind of have an idea of what I know I can get from even if it's like he can't do this, this, and this, as long as you know what he can't do going into a game and what he can do going into a game, it makes game planning and play calling a lot easier. So I think consistency is really the biggest thing that CJ brings to the table. You mentioned it earlier. And then, of course, just impressive arm talent. Like, Kenny has a stronger arm. But like, when you watch CJ throw, I kind of even think there were some people that I know that weren't sold on CJ going into the spring game that came out of it sold. And it's not so much that they're overreacting to a blue gold game, but it's like, when you watch those first two throws he made in the game, it's just kind of like my dad loves Kenny Minchey. Now, he loves CJ Carr as well, but like, he loves Kenny Minchey because my dad has always kind of liked those. He does like a quarterback that can kind of, do a little something and with his legs. And I think also because Kenny was considered the underdog. My dad always kind of likes a little bit of that underdog kind of guy, but he's always liked Kenny. And I think my dad also appreciated that Kenny committed to Notre Dame, knowing that CJ was already there. And he just kind of liked that grittiness from Kenny, because people forget Kenny's older than CJ in the class, but Kenny was committed way after CJ committed. So, but when you look at CJ, Kenny has a stronger arm. CJ's an arm talent. It's just special. And this is what I kept trying to tell people. Like, look, I understand that CJ Carr doesn't have that rocket arm that most 5-star quarterbacks look for. It's like the Trevor Lawrence kind of bazooka. Most highly ranked quarterbacks have like this really powerful arm, and they're 6'3", 215, and they run a 4.6, and that's what gets the recruiting services all excited, is those really special physical tools. And what I've tried to say is, like, I understand all that, but that's not why Aaron Rodgers was a Hall of Famer. That's not why Joe Montana was a Hall of Famer. I mean, there's been plenty of elite quarterbacks that weren't that. That's not why Drew Brees is a Hall of Famer. That's not why Peyton Manning was a Hall of Famer. There's something to be said for I could put this ball wherever I want it. And that's really what CJ Carr brings to the table, even at this young age, is is that impressive arm talent that includes just an exceptional ball placement and just he understands timing. What does arm talent mean? There's got to be a level of arm strength to it. There's got to be a level of, a quickness through the delivery that he has. He has all those things. Arm talent also is about knowing timing of when to throw the ball, but more so being able to put the ball where you want it, being able to change angles, not just with your arm, but with the ball. I got to put a little bit more on this one. I got to take a little bit something off of this one. Understanding how to throw guys open and then be able to put it where only his guy has a chance. I mean, those 2 balls that he threw in the blue gold game were just like, guys, you don't teach that. Like you don't teach that. Like you don't. That's just, boy, that kid just has a special gift. And the funny thing is I wasn't even like, when he made that first throw, I just kind of laughed because it was more, I looked at Vince and laughed, and then he made the second one. I just kind of looked at Vince again and Sean and laughed because it was like, okay, now everyone finally gets to see what we see all the time. Because it's just like, yeah, that's CJ being CJ. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, him dropping dimes. That's just kind of what he does. But the arm talent is special. And I think that's what people finally understand about CJ is like, okay, this guy has a little something.
Yeah, the best way that I can explain it to people that didn't get to see some of the stuff that we saw, obviously, the blue gold game was what it was. But to not read too much into it, we got to see multiple practices outside of the blue gold game. And what I always tell people is Kenny has the strongest arm, but CJ can make any throw on the football field. And that, to me, is kind of the differentiator. Not that Kenny can't, but I've seen CJ do it multiple times where it's just, and that's the consistency conversation. Of like, look, man, like there's times where guys look covered, CJ can throw them open. There's balls that he throws that you can't walk it out better to him than what you did. And his ability to read the game, which was my second point on top of arm talent, is well beyond a soon-to-be redshirt freshman, if we're just being honest. His ability to, I mean, we saw it in last year's blue gold game when he was an early enrollee. Kids hitting backside digs as a 17-year-old who should still be in high school.
Right.
I mean, there's quarterbacks that are at the top of people's lists for the way too early 2026 mock drafts. I can't do that yet. And so CJ mentally is well beyond his years of just being a redshirt freshman. Some of that comes from the football lineage that he comes from. And so that, to me, again, it's another standout factor of his in why he performed the way that he did. But we're not talking about it like it's a surprise because we've gotten to see it, not just in 2 blue gold games.
Yeah. I think there's also, there's a level of poise that I see when I look at CJ Carr as a player as well. That is a little bit unique for someone his age. And you see it in the game. Like the first throw, what happened? They were running a bootleg under route, to the tight end. So they're basically running it's not smash, but it's a high low. It's that is, you're reading it a lot like smash. There's a under route and then a corner route. The ball was not meant to go to Kevin Bauman. You could even see Kevin Bauman run the route. He did not think he was going to get the ball. He didn't start running, really accelerating until he saw CJ look downfield and he was like, let me go. And that was a great awareness by Kevin Bauman to see that and say, go to green, go to the open area. And so CJ sees that. He takes a step back to get himself some distance between the pass rush, and then he just throws it up. That was an example of throwing a guy open. Throw it into the area where only he can catch the football. And that was a more impressive play even than the slot fade to Jack Larson, because the throw to Jack Larson was actually a tougher throw. But that was the read. I mean, it was there. I'm going to give my guy a chance to go put it. It was the more impressive physical throw. But what the first throw showed me was a level of poise that, hey, this first read's not there. The under route's covered. Safety's down low. So if a Don Schuler's down here, guess what's not there? Something behind him. So if number 8's underneath the tight end, then I know that I can get this ball over top and either Kevin Bauman catches it or it's an incomplete pass and we live to fight another day. right? Like that, but just that poise to be able to see it and think about it and go do it is like, okay, that's something that you see relatively consistently. That doesn't mean every read he makes is perfect. There's definitely not some. Like we were talking in the 7-on-7, I think the first or second play he had of the 7-on-7 of the Jersey scrimmage, he has a seam route open. And I'm like, dude, you got to throw the seam route. Later in the game, in the blue gold game, it was CJ that didn't throw the corner route, correct? Like that was him, not Kenny, right? That I wanted him to throw that corner route in the end zone. Elijah Burst was coming open on the corner a little bit late. I want to see CJ put that ball over there and give him a chance to make that play. So he was far from perfect, and no quarterback is. But there's just that overall feel, that poise, the ball placement. It's just all kind of, it's just different. That's really what he is. But as I said, he's still a work in progress as well. There's areas where his game's got to improve. Number one, he's still got to get stronger. Like, I still need to see CJ put on a little bit more armor this offseason to make sure, can you get through a 16-game season? Like, that's going to be important to me. The other part, too, is, and this is why I think there was a significant misconception of a statement that I made about CJ's interception in the blue gold game. So, look, I don't like the throw as far as just a pure evaluation of the play. Hey, that's not the throw you should have made. Guy was undercut. The corner dropped. They played it well. Just hit the check down. But the reason I liked the throw also is because one of my biggest desires for CJ is I want to see you be more assertive. I want to see you realize it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to throw an incomplete pass. It's okay that maybe you might even get picked off, but I want to see you take some of those chances because you've got the arm talent to do so. And that's something that the blue gold game was what did excite me about that performance is we did see more of that from him with the throws he made, but then also the interception. And so am I just like keep making that throw? No, I can correct that as far as the read, but the assertiveness to say, I got to go make this throw. I'm going to make this play and to try to zip that sucker in there. I can live with that because there's going to be another time when he's going to understand that play is there that I want to know that he's going to be able to take. And so that was encouraging for me, Trev, but that's a one-time thing. I need to see that more consistently. Mm-hmm. It's just a willingness to say, hey, man, you don't always have to be perfect. You don't always have to make sometimes it's okay to just let your dudes be dudes. And that's what I loved about the throw to Jack Larson because it wasn't open. Jack was not open. CJ threw him open, and then Jack did a great job of fighting for the ball and just having great concentration. Say, I know the safety's on me, but I'm just locked in on the ball, and I'm going to go fight for the ball. Mm-hmm. It's a great job by CJ, but it was a great job, an even better job by Jack Larson because he was not open. But you got to let your guys go do that from time to time, Trev. Sometimes it's like, guy's not open, but give him a chance. It's a one-on-one. Give him a chance. And so seeing some of those kind of taking some chances, it's like, I want to see a little bit more of that from CJ. I can harness some of it. And, here's how we don't throw a pick next time. But I like the attitude that was behind it. And that was there. Whereas Kenny, I have no problem with that. I mean, Kenny's going to throw picks like that. That's part of life. You live with that because you know he's going to then counter that with some big-time plays. Those type of picks, I wouldn't get mad at Kenny for. It's the ones where you're like, why did you just throw it into triple coverage? That was clearly not that was clearly like a bit of a panic off your back foot type of thing. So that was a positive for me, Travis, to see CJ beat, but he now needs to carry that into the summer and fall. And just, it's okay sometimes to be like, hey man, it doesn't always have to be perfect. Just, it's okay to take some chances. Be a little bit more assertive in that regard. I don't know if the Notre Dame coaches would say that about, but that's certainly where I'm at.
I'm with you, man. I don't have a whole lot more to add. The one thing I will say about the interception, and this is no slight to Logan Saldate, I'm just about to bring up a couple of guys that have just played a lot more college football than them. I don't know if that pass gets picked off, if that's to Malachi Fields or to Jaden Greathouse or to Will Pauling. Ben Minnick made a great play on the ball. He did. And I'm not saying either one of those receivers would have made it a completion either. Who knows if it's a pick? But I'm in the same camp as you of like, look, I'm just happy to see the shot being taken. Because that was some of my biggest gripes as well about past Notre Dame quarterbacks is the unwillingness to take that shot. And you kind of have to walk that gray line of like making a risky throw versus putting it in harm's way. That's a very fine line to walk. But I'm with you. Outside of that, the biggest thing that I need to see from CJ too is just continue to bulk up a little bit, because he is still, as of right now, a true freshman, getting ready to go and do his sophomore season.
And he's not a naturally thick guy.
Yeah.
Like he's a little narrow. So there's going to need to be a little bit of a need for that without then getting too big or too thick or, getting tight and those type of things. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's where I'm at. So yeah, that's where I'm at. And I just love, I'm not even going to let him distract me today. Not even going to let him do it. But so those are things that I want to see, because no one with a brain thinks they're going to go through a season and never turn a ball over, ever. That's just the dumbest thing. You can't possibly. Option teams will throw the turnovers. It's just, you need to make, there's ones you can live with and ones you can't. Because the point with CJ is, if you're not willing to take those chances, then you'll never make plays in those situations either. And that's kind of where you live with it. So the other thing with CJ too is, at times I feel like, and this is more of a high school thing, this is one of those criticisms that I have of him from high school, because we haven't seen him play like in a real game situation where he can be tackled. At times, CJ would hold on to the ball too long while he's moving around the pocket or trying to buy time and waiting on guys to come open. And that would result in sacks or unnecessary hits, like 5-6 seconds after the ball's been snapped. Where he'll make a guy miss, and instead of saying, like, look, I made that guy miss, I just got to run for 4 yards. He'll then try to, stay in the pocket and stay active and try to find somebody open, and that would result in hits, getting hit from behind, the ball getting knocked out. That part didn't happen very often. Or just getting set. Where it's like, hey, man, sometimes it's okay to just check it down or throw it away or run. That's the other thing, is it's okay to run here. You don't always have to be looking for the place to throw the football. So it kind of sounds like, well, didn't you just say, but it's not that he's looking to take chances. He's staying with the read too long, meaning he's waiting on someone to go make a play instead of saying, look, this is here, take your 4, and we'll get to 2nd and 6. It's okay. I'd rather be there than 2nd and 15, because you keep running around, scrambling, trying to wait for somebody to get open, and nobody gets open. And now you're at a point where you've run back into the pocket with all this moving around, or they've done something to come off of a block, and now you're going down. So that's a part of his game too. But that's more of a high school criticism. I don't know how that's going to carry into Notre Dame. We don't know, because we haven't seen him play like in a real game situation. The blue gold game is not a real game in that regard, because when I don't care what anybody says, when you're wearing a red jersey, there's just things you're going to do as a quarterback that you wouldn't necessarily do if you weren't wearing a red jersey. So that's a part of his game that I want to see as well. That's that final piece. Like, hey, know when it's okay to just take that check down, or just to run and those type of things. And, it kind of like ties in with the assertiveness in a very unique way, because what I'm saying here is not that he's trying to go make some crazy type of Josh Allen type of throw. It's just, he always wants it to complete a pass. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's okay to make mistakes sometimes, but sometimes it's like you're trying too hard to get a throw off, when it's just take that one, or just, you made that guy miss, see that crease, go. And that's where I'm curious how much did playing behind Riley Leonard for a year impact CJ Carr? Very curious about that. To just know when to say, hey, man, you made that guy miss, just get what you can get. Because one of the misconceptions about CJ Carr is he's like this unathletic, just sits back in the pocket stiff. CJ is not the athlete Kenny is, but CJ is a good athlete. CJ can run. I mean, you go back and look at his high school film, he's got some clips on there where he made some plays with his legs. He's a move the chain runner. His athleticism is going to work best in the pocket, but that's a little different than just being, hey, man, look, it's okay on 2nd and 4 to just take that 5 and get the first down. It's okay.
The one thing that I will say about this offense as a whole is I'm not going to be as concerned with the skill set of the offense, the personnel that they have coming back. Last season, Marcus Freeman got a lot of heat because he talked about Riley Leonard just needing to live within the offense at times. This year, because it's year 2 of Mike Denbrock, and no matter who he starts at quarterback, the passing game, I think, is going to be elevated, regardless of if it's Kenny or CJ. In the situations that you're talking about, Brian, of like, hey, sometimes you just live with the check down. Hey, sometimes just throw it out of bounds. That's what I mean more of living within the offense. Now, I'm not going to have as much of an issue with it this season if it is kind of the takeaway after some young learning bumps and bruises. Like, hey, dude, just live within the offense. Like, we have playmakers at every level. Every throw doesn't have to be this dynamic, oh my goodness, how did you put it out there like that? Sometimes it's just you make the read and you get what you can get, and so that's one thing that I'm going to be interested to see how CJ continues to develop. The final thing for me, and I talked about it with Kenny Minchie, is the mentality of how do you go into this now, attitude-wise, mentality-wise, with just a two-man battle. And for CJ, I think they started out the spring like they should have. Look, like Steve's the veteran. He's going to, begin getting X amount of snaps. And then you have Kenny and then CJ, and you just kind of go in that pecking order. But there's many that believe that CJ's entering the offseason, number 1 in the pecking order. No depth chart has been released. But how are you going to carry yourself now? And the similar like to Kenny, I think they're going to continue to carry themselves the exact same. But now this is the first little bit of added pressure of like, hey, this is now your job to lose. How do you carry yourself? Same could be said for Kenny, because for all I know, Kenny could be in the lead for this job. So, hey, Kenny, how do you carry yourself now that, you're
right?
So that's going to be interesting to see.
Because they both need to go into the spring like, this is my job. I mean, that's when you look at what this battle is going to look like. And the point of this show wasn't to talk about the battle, and you're not doing that now. But your point about it is correct in that for each player, you're not like CJ said something in the spring, and I think Kenny said something similar. It's like, CJ, you're not competing against Kenny. Kenny, you're not competing against CJ. Like, there is a duel, like, okay, so-and-so brought it today, but it's you are working on trying to be the best version of yourself. And the way that you can be that is you got to start carrying yourself like you're the starting quarterback at Notre Dame. You've got to prepare every day like you're starting quarterback at Notre Dame. And if you're waiting to win a job first, then you're going to lose the job. You got to start carrying yourself today like, okay, Kenny Minchie, all right, I'm coming back next year, and this is what I'm going to do. CJ Carr, I'm coming back next year, and this is what I'm going to do. And every day, like weight room, organizing 7-on-7s, checking in on your teammates when you're not at home, all that stuff. You're carrying yourself like you're starting quarterback at Notre Dame, not to one up the other guy, but because this is the expectation for you as the starting quarterback at Notre Dame. You can't be the starting quarterback at Notre Dame if you can't show that you can carry yourself and prepare every day like that guy. And that's going to be for both of them. That's something that both of them can do. So we're going to move on to the next section, Trev. But before we do, folks, do us a favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share this podcast. Give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate that. And, of course, as always, the best way, the absolute best way to support what we're doing at Irish Breakdown is to make sure you subscribe to the message board at boards.irishbreakdown.com.